In a perfect world, you would always have the right size of veneer, no matter how wide or how long it is. But the reality is, at some point, you're going to have to learn how to join and joint veneers. Whether you're joining thicker pieces of wood or veneers, the process is much the same. The only thing we have to take into account is because veneer is thinner, we have to stop it from flexing as we do the jointing process. A lot of the tools are the same, and we'll go through that process today. You're going to need to joint your veneer, especially if you used my favorite way of cutting veneers, and that's with a knife. A knife will have a single or double bevel, and what ends up happening is, even though it is a thin piece of wood, it will still give you an angled edge. Now, a good veneer saw, much like this one from Gramercy Tools, will leave a more square edge, but even in those cases, I'm still going to joint the veneer. To join two pieces of thicker wood, I place a mark where those two faces are going to join each other. And whether I've used a power jointer or not, I still come back and do this at the bench with a jack plane. All I do is close the book, put the pieces in my vise, and now together I'll run a plane over it till I get a nice clean shaving all the way down from both pieces. And it doesn't really matter if I'm at 90 degrees because the angles, once we open the book back up, are complementary. The process of joining two veneers is much the same as thicker pieces of wood. I've placed my mark where these two edges are going to come together, but as you can see with the white background, it's far from a perfect edge. So what I'm going to do is close the book and now joint that edge for a perfect fit. Because veneers are thinner and therefore more flexible, we need some way of stopping that flex. You can use two pieces of MDF and just overhang the veneer just past the point of the two edges. We're not actually going to use these edges for our straight edge. The two pieces of MDF are strictly there to stop the veneer from flexing. To make the jointing jig, any two pieces of MDF, Baltic birch, or even solid milled wood will work to stop the veneers from flexing as you do the jointing process. They don't have to be very wide, and you can make them as long as the veneer that you need to joint. Now, if you do this often enough, you're going to want to make your own jointing jig. And it's a really simple jig that incorporates a few neat little features to help the process along. For one thing, I've got sandpaper on both the inside faces, and that stops the veneer from slipping as you do the jointing. There's a spring here to help me separate the two pieces of MDF when I'm done the jointing process. And the two knobs make sure that I clamp the veneer perfectly. Now, if you want to make one of these, you can take a look in my book, Veneering Essentials, where I cover making the jig in more detail. To joint these two pieces and then join these two pieces of veneer, we're going to close the book, bring the two edges as close together as possible, and then we're going to slip it into our jig with about 1/8 to 3/16 of overhang. Remember, we're not using the face of the jig as a straight edge or a mark that we're going to joint to. We're just using this jig to make sure that the veneer does not flex. Now that the veneers are clamped in the jointing jig, we can select the right tool to do the job, and there are several different options. With the thicker pieces of wood, we use this metal jack plane. You can also use a longer jointer. I prefer to use a wooden Kernovian jack plane because I find that it gives me a little bit more sensitive touch. Now, occasionally you're going to work with some difficult woods, like this curly white ash, or sometimes you're going to be book matching and the grain of the wood won't want to cooperate. In those cases, we want to break out the sandpaper. Now, when I first graduated from rosewood, I made my own by buying some square aluminum tubing and sticking my own sandpaper to it. Veritas has come out with the shooting sander, and this will not only work with solid wood, but works great with veneer as well. To start jointing your veneers, take your hand plane or your sander and start slicing into your veneers. And it doesn't matter if you're using a wooden plane, a metal plane, or a sander. What you're looking for is a nice clean edge on both pieces. And when the edges are smooth, you can pull them out and compare them to what you had before. If you use this method of jointing your veneers, it's hard to tell where the joint is unless you force it open. And it's also very repeatable as long as you have sharp blades in your hand planes or fresh sandpaper on your shooting sanders. In another video, I'm going to show you how to joint veneers using a track saw. And beyond that, I'm going to show you how to tape them up so that they stay together in a vacuum bag or as you press the veneers to a panel.